Hi everybody, welcome to the February Perfectly Pieced monthly project. The monthly project in this month's subscription is a 4-inch block project, and it makes this wall hanging table topper or pillow. Sorry again for construction. That's going to be going on for probably at least another couple months. I'll link the construction videos below. Today they're putting up the trusses for the roof. Last month for the teacup project, we made a pillow extremely similar to this. I already have a video on my channel for this month's block tutorial for the orange peel block. I also have videos showing you how to make connecting borders and how to bind. So we're going to have a little fun with this today and make something totally different. With your subscription, there's this file called Digital Contents. It shows you the block by block quilting, the all over quilting, the borders, and it shows you the featured project. The second page also gives you some different ways to arrange the block. This gives you an idea of some of the different configurations for the orange peel and some of the ways to color your project. The coloring on this, I think, is pretty common. It almost looks like a 1930s reproduction floral. There's a lot of history behind the orange peel block. I'm going to link that below. There's an excellent blog by Barbara Brackman. You can read all about the orange peel block. We'll talk about fabric selection in just a moment. Really quick, also included is the Hearts 11 quilting and borders. We're going to be using the clear blue tiles for the project we're using today. We also get the Hearts border file, which we used in our Perfectly Pieced monthly video for February. And you have your single block with quilting instructions. There's a bunch of notes on here from the video for the mystery quilt this month. The evergreen projects this month were the same as last time. I don't know if they're going to be changing these every couple months or if they're the same for the year. We'll have to wait and find out. What's different about this orange peel block is that it's pieced. Normally, the orange peel is a curved applique block. I talked a little bit about this in the mystery quilt video. I'm going to go ahead and show this again just in case. This is the AccuQuilt die for the orange peel block. See how it's round? Normally what you do is you cut the round shape. You can use something like this die or a template. There's paper templates you can download for free. There's plastic templates you can order. And then this gets appliqued on top of your background fabric. When we piece it in the hoop, instead of having that curve, it does have some angles, but you don't have to use a template. Let's talk a little bit about fabrics and layouts. The picture here gives you a good idea of what it looks like when you make this scrappy. 1930s reproduction florals come to mind. Designers like Lori Holt, her fabrics would look good with this. You could also make this seasonal. You can do Christmas, Halloween, Valentine's Day. I have some good ideas for Valentine's Day coming up. And it's an older block. You can read the block history below. Civil War reproduction fabric. Some of the more brown and earth tone looking fabrics will look good with this design. Pretty much anything goes. What I did, similar to the teacup, is I googled orange peel quilts. Let me show you. We'll do this like last time. You can put in your browser orange peel block. I'm using the DuckDuckGo browser. It blocks a lot of ads. And across the top, I'm going to hit images. This is a great way to get inspiration. You can see different colors, different layouts. You'll even see references to different videos on how to make the orange peel. Here's that brown and yellow, kind of the more traditional. Here's a Missouri Star video where they did that all in purple. You can see different layouts, different way the orange peel is used to give you a different look. If I change the word block to quilts, we're going to get a different set of pictures. Here we get some wonderful pictures of orange peel quilts, different colors, different layouts. You can see in this picture the orange peel is white and there's a patchwork center. Here's one that's kind of monochromatic oranges and yellows. Here's one that's blues and grays and greens. Here the orange peel is used to make different designs. The orange peel is used in a variety of blocks. This is called, I believe, a pickle dish. A little bit different, but it has that orange peel shape. This is a fun way to get ideas. This is the picture I wanted to show you. Do you see how they made a flower out of that? That's what gave me the inspiration for what we're going to do today. Before I show you what I came up with for today's project, I'm going to show you some layouts. I came up with these using the EQ8 quilt software. So my orange peel is round. It's a traditional quilt block. It does come up in that block library in that software, and it shows as round. This is a simple layout. I left this picture in black and white. I have some coming up in color. When you lay it out this way, you tend to see the circular design. You've got a circle in each corner and then another one here in the center. You may also see half a circle here, an X, and half a circle here. There's different ways to look at the project. When you rotate it and lay it out more like an X, this is the design you get. Here you've got 4 X's, one in each corner. But again, depending on how you look at it, you might see a circle here, 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 and here. This is a very interesting block because with just a subtle change, you get a completely different look. I decided to see if I could make this look like a heart. I laid that out. You can. It's kind of like a little bubbly heart. You can see the orange peel is right here, and then you have to change your background fabric colors. The background fabric to match, and then a white background fabric over here, or whatever color you pick. You can arrange these to make a heart shape. And if you're looking for something for Valentine's Day, this is the perfect block to make hugs and kisses. You can make X's and O's. I used some pinks to show this. You can change the colors to anything you want. I tend to think of pinks and reds with Valentine's Day. If you've got Valentine's Day print fabrics, you can make the X's and the O's. You can make it in a square like this. You could put another border here and lay it out longer. And with your embroidery machine, you could even embroider like hugs and kisses inside of these blocks when they're pieced and put together and they're done. It would make a great table runner. You could also use this configuration XO, 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 make it longer and make a bed runner and color it to match the decor in your bedroom. If you've got a really long table, same thing. You could make several X and O blocks, make them long. You could even do X and O and then a blank block, and you could embroider a sentiment in the middle. Maybe you know somebody who's getting married. You could put their names, their anniversary date, their wedding date on there and have the XO and then that block in the middle and another XO. Drawing on the inspiration from the quilt that had the flower looking block, I came up with this. A sunflower block made with the orange peel. This configuration is in the square like the monthly project, and depending on which block size you use, it will change the size of the project. With this configuration, if you want to make a block like this, maybe you don't want a sunflower, maybe you want a daisy, all you have to do is have the petal color, the center color, and the background color for your flower. I used a green for leaves, yellow for the border. Instead of making another square project like we did last month, I decided to configure this as a rectangle. Today we're going to make this project, and we're going to use the very, very, very small 2-inch blocks. I've never used them before. We're going to give it a try. I've already cut all my pieces. It didn't take that long. And we're going to turn it into a wall hanging. You'll notice down here I've got a blank space. This is a great spot to embroider something like welcome, my happy place, sewing space, something that you'd like to put there. This will be optional whether or not you want to make that. You could always end it here and you'll just have a little wall hanging with your flower. This could also be made as a mug rug, placemats, with this configuration more of a table topper, but I wanted to make a nice little welcome sign to hang up in my sewing room. Let's talk about prep, fabric choices, and how we're going to make this today. One of the reasons why I picked the 2-inch block is because I can do all of these little pieces here in one hooping. I have a 9.5 by 14-inch hoop, and we're going to be doing the pieced without quilting version, and then at the end we'll quilt the entire thing. I've picked out my fabrics for the flower, for the background, and for the leaves. Here are the fabrics I picked. This is for the sunflower petals, the center of the sunflower, the leaves, and the background. These fabrics here are called spotted. They're by Zen Chic. It comes in different colors. It has a really nice pattern to it. When I decided to make a sunflower, I immediately thought about the center of the sunflower and how it usually has visible seeds, and this came to mind. I had these bundles on my shelf from a previous project. You can see there's not a lot of colors left in this one. I've made a quilt with most of the fat quarters from this bundle, and then I had this package. I had these fat quarter bundles for a while. they're no longer available like this. You can still buy yardage of this fabric. Other fabrics that will work well if you want to use a background with some texture would be the thatched line. That's actually on sale, I believe, for the month of February. This is February 2026. If you're watching this one, it's just posted, or in case you're watching it later. But Fat Quarter Shop has the thatched fabric line on sale. They're a solid with a texture. Laundry Basket Quilt has a line called Essex. It's a yarn dyed fabric. It has a linen look to it, so it has a bit of texture. I'm using a batik for the background. I'll show you that in a minute. Batik solids will have a little bit of texture to it, a little bit of movement, or you can use a print or a solid with no texture. Let's look at the background. My background fabric is an artisan batik solid. It's called Prisma Dyes Powder is the color. I got this from Missouri Star. I bought it to make a particular project and I forgot which project. It's been sitting in the drawer. Found it in the drawer and I looked at it and it looks like a blue sky. You can see some of the nice texture to it. It's not a solid. It's got that variation to it, and I think that's going to look really good behind the sunflower. White would work as well, but I thought I'd like to have a nice pale blue, and this is going to be perfect. When you cut for this project, you need to keep your colors in mind and look at the cutting instructions. On page 4 of the single block with quilting, they have the cutting sizes for one block. You see I've got a sticky note here and some notes over here. Piece 1, these here, are going to be either the flower or the leaf. That's the orange peel. When you look at the design, you need 1, 2, 3, 4 yellow, and 1, 2, 3, 4 green. I made myself a note. Green, I needed 4, and yellow, I needed 4. Pieces 2 through 9 are your background. For the green, for your leaf, they're the same. Here's the background for the leaf. When you look at the flower, part of the background is the white, or in my case the pale blue, and part of the background is the brown. Piece 2, 3, 4, and 5 are the same as piece 6, 7, 8, and 9. You can see that when you look at the diagram right here. Here's piece 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 6, 7, 8, and 9. One side has to be one color, and the other side has to be another color. I needed to cut 4 brown and 4 of my background. For the leaf, I need to cut 4 and 4 of the same color. So all of these are the same color for the leaf. For the flower, it's half and half because we've got background and brown. For the piece at the bottom, I cut a rectangle 2.5 by 4.5. You could also cut 2.5 inch squares. My numbers here are in inches. This was helping me to figure out the size because when I created this in EQ8, I didn't look at the size of the block. Looking at this, you can see there's a 1 inch border, a 2 inch block, a 2 inch block, and a 1 inch border. It's going to be 6 inches across. Top to bottom, you've got your 1 inch border on top and bottom, and 2 inches, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, and 12. So it's going to be 6 by 12. That's a good size for a nice little wall hanging or a door decoration. Again, sorry for the noise. I can't control the noise right now. For the fabric, I starched everything. I did not add any fusible. This is the kind of starch I use when I'm quilting. Let's talk about fabric requirements for the entire project. We have 8 2-inch orange peel blocks, 1 piece at the bottom right here that's just background fabric. You can do that as a 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle or 2.5 inch squares sewn together. For your borders, if you're electing to do this block by block with the quilting, you need to think about the files. The file sizes to quilt a border 1 by 10 or 1 by 6 are a little different. If you're quilting the 10-inch border, you have to use the 12-inch file, the 6-inch border, the 10-inch file, and I talked a little bit about this in the mystery quilt video. For your borders, how you cut your fabric is going to depend on how you plan on quilting this. If you're going to quilt it block by block like we did for the mystery quilt, and you're doing the 1-inch borders, I would cut 2 inches wide by 12 and 2 inches wide by 10. You would need 2 of each. We're going to sew our borders on to our blocks and then quilt this all together. We'll need to cut 1.5 inches by 10 and 1.5 inches by 6. We'll need 2 of these. Backing, I'd say a minimum of 8 by 14 because our project is 6 by 12. That gives us an inch extra all the way around. For the binding, I would say minimum 42 inches of 2.5 inch strips. Here's how I figure binding for my quilts. I add up all my borders and I add 10, which gives me extra room for when I fold my mitered corners and for when I tuck in my binding at the end. You've got 10 plus 6 plus 6, which is 32, and I add an extra 10, which is 42. Usually I end up with some extra binding. I'd rather have a few inches extra to cut off than get to the point where I'm tucking in my binding and I don't have enough. For batting, about 8 by 14, you don't want to cut your batting the same size as your project. It's always good to have a little bit extra, and this is a great project to use pieced together scrap batting. We're going to start by making all of our orange peel blocks, and for this video I'm doing that right on the stabilizer. If you want to see how to make the quilted version, watch the February orange peel mystery block, and I take you step by step through one block with the block by block quilting. Make sure you have your single block with quilting instructions handy, particularly this diagram. This is going to help you keep all your pieces in order. You want your Kimberbell light mesh cutaway, or today I'm actually using this no-show mesh medium weight by HBI. Because I have my bigger hoop, I need a piece that's wide enough for my hoop. The Kimberbell stabilizer I have left won't fit this hoop. I have to order the bigger roll. This is extremely similar to the Kimberbell light mesh cutaway, good to have as a backup. I'm going to use regular 7511 embroidery needles today, and for my thread color I picked this nice icy pale blue. It blends in really well with the background fabric. This is a sim thread. I'm going to load my stabilizer in my hoop. Let's head over to the machine. I'm on a baby lock meridian. My files are on USB. We're going to be working with the 2-inch block, and we're using the one that does not have the quilting. These are the blocks that you get with your subscription. You'll see there's 2 2-inch, 2 4, 2 6, and 2 8-inch. You've got the block that has the quilting that has the little heart on it, and the blocks that are plain don't have the quilting. We're going to work with that today, and we're using the 2-inch block. I'm going to go ahead and hit set. We're going to need 8 of these blocks, and that's part of the reason why I decided to use the 2-inch. The most I could fit, even in my big hoop of the 4-inch, was 3 at a time. I'm going to hit edit. I already moved it over. I'm going to use the border duplicate key. I'm going to add one over on this side, space it out, take advantage of all the space in my hoop. That looks good. Now we're going to add the rest of the blocks up and down below. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8. And let's go ahead and space those out. That'll give us room to be placing our fabric and trimming and flipping everything. I'm going to hit OK. I'm going to save that to my machine, and we're going to get started. We'll hit embroidery. I already have that light blue thread on my machine. And you'll see here it shows pink, which is fine. The colors are relevant. But it's here 8 times. Because we use that border duplicate key, it's going to work on all the blocks at the same time. The first thing that stitches out when you're using the pieced block with no quilting is the piecing template. That's different than if you're working with the block with quilting. If you're working with the block with quilting, you're going to have a square, and you're going to have your batting placement, batting tack down, trim your batting, and then you'll see this, which is the piecing template. The piecing template needs to be stitched out either directly on your stabilizer, like we're going to do today, or on your batting, like I did in the mystery quilt video. We're going to stitch out 8 piecing templates. Here we go. All my templates have stitched out. We're starting with our piece 1 fabrics. We're going to have 4 yellow for the flower petal of the sunflower, and I'm going to have 4 green for the 4 leaves. I'm going to lay everything out, and then I'm going to add a piece of tape to make sure nothing moves while we start doing our stitch out. You can see my tape is at the bottom of each one of the squares. That's because we're piecing the top part first. That way I don't have to worry about stitching over the tape. Let's stitch out the first trimming and placement line. We want to trim away everything that's on top of that trimming and placement line, and then we're going to place our piece 2 fabrics. I picked the brown for the flower center, and it's a textured print solid. I need to make sure I place this right side down, centered along the trimming and placement line for all my yellow. And then my solid for my leaves is a batik, and it does have a right and a wrong side. You can tell the difference on this fabric, so I need to make sure, same thing, I place it right side down, centered along the trimming and placement line, and then we'll stitch the seam. I'm actually going to take this over to my table, make sure I have everything nice and centered, and add a small piece of tape. These are small pieces of fabric. I added my tape on the bottom side of all of these little pieces of fabric because next we're going to stitch the seam. It's going to go right there. That way I don't have to pick out tape. If I put the tape here, it would stitch over the tape. Let's stitch the seam. All the seams have stitched. I need to remove the tape, flip everything, and press it. I'm going to take this over to the ironing board, and I'm going to use my mini iron today, and I'm actually going to press these between all the steps because the pieces are really small. I want to make sure to keep this accurate. Hi everybody. Unfortunately, there was a technical glitch with my camera. We've got a section of video here in the middle that recorded without sound, and some of the video also in the middle actually had to be deleted. No worries though. I'll set what I can to music. You can watch the block being pieced. For step-by-step instructions, you can watch my February 2026 Perfectly Pieced Mystery Quilt video, where I walk you through step-by-step how to make the orange peel block. No instructions are missing. You'll be able to make this project no problem. Once that line has stitched out, you want to trim away the excess fabric above the trimming and placement line. Everything is trimmed. I'm going to place my next piece of fabric right side down, tape it into place, and stitch the seam. The seam has stitched out. We're going to stitch the next trimming and placement line. It stitches bottom to top. So I added a piece of tape to the corner of all of these little pieces of fabric. I don't want it to get caught as it stitches. All of the next steps are the same. We stitch out the trimming and placement lines, trim the extra fabric, lay down our next piece right side down, and stitch the seam. If you want to see this in more detail, please watch the February 2026 Mystery Quilt video featuring the orange peel block. I'm going to advance the video back to the point where we get sound. A quick reminder for the last step of your stitch out, make sure after you've got your block pieced that you give your blocks a really good press. I actually hover my finger over the start and stop as it stitches out that trimming line that goes around the block. I'm watching to make sure that my presser foot doesn't get caught. I do start and stop the machine a couple of times and my machine is not running at full speed. Once you've stitched out that final trimming line, remove all the tape, and I opted to give my blocks one more good press before I go ahead and trim them. I want to make sure that they're nice and flat. If there's any tape caught in the seam, you can trim that out. Don't iron over the paper tape. It will melt, it will turn brown, it smells, and it sticks to the bottom of your iron. Once everything is pressed, go ahead and get it out of your hoop. These blocks trim to 2.5 inches square. I use a 2.5 inch square Creative Grids ruler and my rotating cutting mat to help trim the blocks. It can be helpful to separate the blocks first, get rid of the extra stabilizer, and then start your trimming once all of your blocks are separated. I'm going to walk you through everything that I did step by step, and then we're going to start on our quilting. You can see I have everything pieced together. Let's flip this to the back. When I pieced the individual blocks together, I opted to nest my seams instead of pressing open. What that means is I pressed seams to the right, to the left, to the right, and to the left. Then when I put them right sides together to join them, they sort of lock together. That's nesting your seams, and I pieced all the blocks together. At that point, these seams you do have to press open. There's a lot of bulk, especially here, here, and here they were easier to press open. After you've got this part of your project together, you can sew on that bottom rectangle. Once you have all the blocks together, you add your borders. You want to measure your piece top to bottom, add the side borders first. Now I cut my side borders 1.5 inches wide because I want a 1-inch finish border. I added the side borders and then the top and bottom borders. You can see that the borders wanted to press out, so I went ahead and I pressed those out. For this bottom block, I'm going to embroider the word welcome, and I want to make sure that that embroidery is on top of my quilting. That's why I did not embroider it first. If you're creative and if you've got some blocks, I think Spring Showers might have a block. There might be some other Kimberbell projects. You can make a little flower pot down here. You can do that with felt applique. This is the color thread I picked to embroider welcome at the bottom. Once you've got your piece together, you need to cut your batting and your backing. Your batting needs to be a little bit bigger than your piece. See how that's cut like that? That's great, that's ready to go. Then we have to cut our backing. And what I did was I cut a piece of backing. I just picked the yardage that I have, that was easiest, the same size as my batting. Now, when I thought about this and how I wanted to quilt it, we'll be using clear blue tiles to quilt. I figured this would fit in my 8x12 hoop and I'd have enough backing to hoop. However, when I load the clear blue tiles file, my machine won't quilt it with the 8x12 hoop. It wants the big hoop. The big hoop is 9.5 by 14. Do you see my problem? I've got no way to hoop this. What I need to do for my backing fabric is either add some scrap fabric to it, or I've got these big piles of scrap stabilizer. I need to make this large enough to get into my big hoop before I can do my quilting. Let's talk about how you select your quilting file. I'm going to use the clear blue tiles today. I'll show you which tile to use if you're making this the same size, if you only have the essential set, or what you can pick if you have a larger hoop and the expansion set. If you don't have clear blue tiles, let me walk you through what you can do for block by block quilting. Without clear blue tiles, the easiest way to make this would be to select the files that have the quilting and quilt these all as you go, and then you can quilt your borders in the hoop, and then you can make a little small block and quilt it and do your embroidery and sew it all together. Then you would do stitch in the ditch to attach it to the backing. If you prepared it like this, we've got no quilting, you can actually still do block by block quilting. You just need to get a little creative. I think I would only do this if you can fit the whole thing in your hoop, otherwise you're really going to have to get good with matching up. So you could load the block by block, stitch out the batting placement, place your batting, tack it down and trim, and then stitch out the fabric placement line. On the front of your hoop, you would place this, tape it down. On the back of your hoop, you would place your backing fabric, make sure it's right side out, and tape that into place. And then you could do your quilting. If all you have is the clear blue tiles essential set, you have a couple of options. My favorite option is the 6x6 block. You do one hooping and then another hooping. This essentially gives you 6x12 because you've got that 6-inch across, 6 inches, and then another 6 inches. So if you're working with a smaller hoop, the 6x6 block will work. If you have a 5x7 hoop, you just need to figure out which tiles fit your hoop. I talk about that in my other clear blue tiles videos. I'll make sure they're linked below. The Essentials set also has a 6x10. You could use the 6x10 and center it. Then you need to use the border tiles. There's a 1x7, so the 1x7 could go up here and could go down here. That means you have to do 3 hoopings. I have the expansion set. I have a 6x12 tile, but for this project, this 6x10 actually is going to work now that I think about it. Maybe it was a good thing the sound got deleted. I went ahead and pulled my clear blue tiles expansion set and I brought out my 6x12. I've got a piece of tape here. You'll see it's already marked because I filmed that, unfortunately, with no sound. I laid this out, 6x12. There's a little bit on the top, bottom, and sides that's not going to get quilted, but that's okay because we're going to add binding. If you want the quilting to run on and off this, you can just pick a bigger tile. When I mark this for 6x12, because this is the entire project and I'm not joining it for anything, the only marks I made were the center mark, so the center dot and the little lines to help me center it. If all you have is the 6x12 file, but your hoop's big enough to stitch out a bigger file, you can use the 6x10. Center it. The center of the project is about here where the leaves are. I already did my drawing on that. You can see that. I made sure the circle is above the seam, and all I marked was the dot, the lines, and the lines. We're going to get this quilted, but before I can go to my machine, I need to add those scraps to the side of my backing fabric to make sure it's big enough to hoop. When I'm hooping this, I want to try and keep this somewhat centered. That'll make getting my project in the hoop ready to quilt a little bit easier. Let's load our quilting file. Sorry for background noise again. There's always seems to be something going on lately when I'm filming. I have everything on the USB. You'll see I've got the quilting block by block and the quilting clear blue tiles. We're going to use the clear blue tiles file today, and I'm using the 6x12. When they come up, I can't tell 6 by whatever, but I know this is 6x6, 6x8, 6x10, 6x12. That's the one I want. See how it's 11.85 by 5.86? It's going to be fine. We're going to be putting on binding. I'm going to hit set and embroidery, and then I want to check to make sure that I have everything centered. Normally you would center your project using that plastic piece, or you can use the notches on the sides of your hoop. Today I'm going to use the laser. This little W plus with the red dot in the middle, I'm going to push that. See the red dot? That's the center. I've got my little project over here. I want to take that and I want to line up that laser with the center dot that I made with my clear blue tile. When you try to center this, it's got a little bit of bulk. I have some Hobbs 80/20 batting. It's kind of poofy and it's puffing everything up. I have to push it down, get it nice and flat, and then I can look for that center laser right about there, and I can also hand crank the needle to hold it in place. And then I'm going to get some paper tape and I want to tape this down nice and secure. Since I'm making this a door hang, I could have also used Shapeworm interfacing. That's the thicker product that Kimberville makes that they often use for the bottom of rope bowls. That would make this a little more stiff. This is essentially like a little quilt block. We'll add some tape here and then at the top. And then I'm going to smooth this out and I'm going to tape down my fabric. I've got my tape holding my fabric and my batting. I'm going to needle up. I know that I'm centered. Make sure to put my presser foot up. And I want to get rid of this tape. I don't want to accidentally quilt over that. I still have the light blue thread on my machine. I'm going to use that for my quilting. Because I've got my project sort of floating in the hoop with the batting and the fabric, I'm going to sit here and watch it. Here we go. Do you see how puffy this is? Because I use that Hobbs batting. I'm going to need to babysit this. I'm going to watch it, keep my finger here at the start and stop button. You might see my hands kind of come in and out of frame. Always stop your machine if you need to touch something or move something, because this will sew right over your fingers. You don't want to do that. All the quilting is done. You can see how lumpy and bumpy it is and how uneven it is. What this reminds me of is when I'm doing long arm quilting, if I have an uneven quilt top, I'll actually have the machine going slow and I'll shift and move the fabric, which is a lot easier on a long arm machine than an embroidery machine. And I have really good results with that, and I get everything nice and flat and even. This is a little lumpy bumpy. What we're going to do now is I'm going to stitch out the welcome, and then I'm going to take this over to my iron and I am going to saturate it with spray starch, because all I did was a light starch on this. I can still feel that the fabric is nice and soft. Spray starch or even water is going to shrink the fabric, but spray starch is going to make it nice and crisp. So I'm going to soak it, try and shrink it a bit, and then iron it and see if I can get it flat. But for now, let's work on adding the word welcome. I need to get out of this design. We'll go to the home screen, and I'm just going to use the font that's on my machine. We've got our fonts up here, and I kind of like a script font, something that looks a little, quote, fancy. I like this font right here. I tend to use this a lot if I'm making quilt labels, anything like that. I'm going to just type a W. Right now it's large size. You can see up here it's 1.34 by 1.78. I may be able to work with the large font. Let's try it. Lowercase E-L-C-O-M-E. It's 1.34 by 5.54. I have a 2x4 piece of fabric on the bottom. That's going to be too big. Let's go back. Select the W, change to medium font, lowercase, type it out again. E-L-C-O-M-E. 0.67 by 2.78. Let me go ahead and hit set. That will definitely fit. It could be a bit bigger. It's not even an inch high. Let's go to edit, size. Let's make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to go out as far as it can. Actually, it just keeps going. Usually it stops you after a while, but look at that. It keeps going. Let's get this custom size. I'm bringing it down. I'll just keep fussing with it until I get it about where I'd like it. That looks good. 0.93 by 3.92. Let's hit OK. I'm going to need to move it. This isn't where it needs to be. I'm going to hit embroidery. And now if I do layout and move, my machine's going to move as I move the design. Do you hear the hoop moving? Let's go look at the hoop. I want it centered in this block here. Let's push that down arrow. Looks pretty good. Let's turn on the laser. There's the laser. That looks really centered. I'm going to hit OK. There's some other buttons we can play with. One of the buttons I find most useful is this one here. It kind of looks like a snake with an arrowhead. I'm going to hit that. Right now it's in the center. You can move top center, top left, top right, center on either side. You can see where it's going to go. Let's go top center. Let's go back and look at the project. The laser is top center. It's within my block. The seam for my block is right here. Let's go bottom center. That's actually really good. I think I did a good job. I've got about the same space here as I do above. Let's go to the right. This is right center. Uh-oh, I'm in the yellow. Let's go to left. And I'm not in the yellow, but it looks like my design might be a little bit too long. And I had to hit the return key. That's what made the hoop move. For more odd technical issues, I have no idea why this isn't focusing. All I do is I resize it and keep checking it to get it to the point where my design fits. Then we're ready to go. My yellow thread is on the machine. We're going to stitch out the word welcome. That's stitched out beautifully. I'm glad I decided to do that over the quilting. Everything actually looks really good. It's a little puffy in some parts, but that's okay. Let's go get this out of our hoop. I want to take this out of the hoop, and I also want to remove all of that tape. Before I trim this to the final size I want, I'm going to do that trick with the starch and maybe some spray water and iron it. So I'm going to give it a rough cut just to get it out of all of the extra stuff. Like this, I'm going to take this over to my ironing board, soak it with my Faultless Heavy Finish Spray Starch. This is what I mean by saturate. Can you see how heavy I sprayed it? I'm going to let this sit, and I'm going to go have lunch. Then I'll come back and I'll run the iron over this, and it should help flatten it out and shrink up some of these parts where the fabric is puffed up. I let this dry. I've got it nice and pressed. Makes it really stiff. It's going to be perfect now for a door hanger. I do still have some fabric folds here, but that's okay. This is a quilted product. It's meant to look quilted. It reminds me of when you have a quilt and you wash it a few times and it starts to get that really soft, kind of puffy looking feel to it. It looks fantastic. I'm very pleased with it considering everything that went wrong. Let's talk about trimming. I want to make sure that this is going to be straight before I put on my binding. This is the most crooked border, I think, right here and right here. It's even crooked here. Do you see this? Straight, 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 and it kind of goes whoop. When it quilted, I remember it kind of went this way and it pulled everything. but it's okay. Not worried about it. Let's grab a ruler. What's great about you watching this video is you can see everything that will go wrong, so you know what to do to avoid it. Normally I look for a straight seam right along the border. This is a little wonky. I'm probably going to use this seam here. This is really nice and straight. Got my ruler. I'm going to line it up along that seam and then slide it down until I get to the shortest part. This is the shortest part right here. Let's line that up again, nice and straight along that seam between these two blocks. And it's also straight right here and right here. So I've got a 3 seam check. I'm going to trim that off. And then I'm actually going to measure that. I want to try and make sure that my borders end up being about the same width all the way around. It's just over an inch. So as I go around, I'll measure them all to make sure that I don't have something maybe that's 1.25 inches and then less than 1 inch. I want to make sure my borders are all the same width. We can double check and measure our borders. I think it's 1 1/8 inches and 1 1/8 inches because it's not quite 1.25 inches. That looks about the same. And this one, well, that one just kind of went off the rails and that's kind of crooked. I want to put a ribbon on this. I want to hang it over a doorknob. You could also make a little sleeve on the back to put in a dowel, or if you have one of those nice quilt block hangers, you can use that. I grabbed a couple different things that might work for this. I have some yellow rickrack trim. I've got this ribbon. It's got a flower on it. I have some lace, and I've got some polka dot ribbons. Let's look at everything one by one. I'm going to start with this because I know I'm not going to use it because of the orange. I don't think it looks good. Let's set that aside. This yellow lace is completely different than this yellow. I also don't think that will look good. That brings it down to this trim, which again is yellow but not the same color yellow. And then I have these polka dot ribbons. I'm really liking the green. Let's take the green out of the bag. I am going to have green binding, but looking at this and how it's got the polka dots and the dots in the fabric, I think that's going to look really nice as a little hanging ribbon for this. This yellow just isn't quite the right color. There's a couple ways you can do this. You could put 1 piece and 2 piece and then tie it and hang it. I'm going to keep it easy after all that went on today. I just want to make a loop. I'm going to look at it like this. And think about it going over a doorknob. How much space is it going to need? Probably about that. We actually have straight handle type doorknobs, so I don't need a whole heck of a lot of space. That's going to be long enough. And that gives me room to attach it inside the binding. I'm going to cut it right there. And we're going to use that. I'm going to turn my project over to the back, and I need to lay this down. Now if I lay it down like this, when it flips to the front, the polka dots will be facing front. That's perfect. That's what I want. So I want that there. Let's grab a couple of clips. I'm big on eyeballing things, but I will clip this and then I'll measure and make sure I've got about the same amount of space. We'll clip that. We'll clip that. Let's get our small ruler and measure. I'm 1.5 inches in and 1.25 inches. See, I didn't do a very good job over there. Let's move this a little bit further in. Let's make sure we're 1.5 inches. Now it's 1.5 inches. Here's the edge of the ribbon, 1.5 inches. Great, that's exactly where I want it. Another thing I like to do is add a piece of tape to this to hold it so I don't accidentally shift it and catch it when I'm putting on the binding. Let's flatten that and add our tape. All that's left now is to add my binding. I'll put a video below showing how I attach binding. I machine bind, I sew to the back, I do the folded corners, and I flip it to the front. I machine bind everything. My binding is on. Let's take the tape off of our ribbon and flip it over and have a look. Oh, I love it. It's popping up here because the ribbon's here. That's to hang it up. It came out great. I'm so surprised. So many things went wrong with this. I thought it was going to be a complete and total train wreck. It looks really nice. A couple things to help your project come out even better. While I do like the welcome in the yellow, I think dark green would have stood out a little bit more. Don't use puffy batting. My batting was way too puffy for this. Use Kimberbell Project batting. Missouri Star 80/20 batting is very similar. It's nice and flat. Or you can use the shape form interfacing, and that'll be really flat, and that'll give it a very stiff feel versus batting. But since I put so much spray starch on it, look at this. You almost can't even bend it. It's kind of funny. You can, but when you let it go, it wants to stand up straight. It's very heavily starched. It's ready to hang up. I'll hang it up and I'll put a picture on the screen for you. Thank you so much for making this month's block project with me for Perfectly Pieced. We made ours a little bit different. If you want to make it just like this, now you know how to make the blocks without quilting or with quilting on my mystery quilt video for this month, and you can piece this together and make a pillow or a wall hanging. You can also watch the teacup video where I make a pillow and see how to do the borders and put the pillow together. Just for fun, here's what we made today. And again, you can make this bigger by choosing any of the other different blocks. Here's what it would look like as a pillow or a table topper or wall hanging. We've got the X and O for Valentine's Day. You could make a big heart. And then 2 quick black and whites where I showed you how to arrange it either as the X or the O's. Coming up soon is going to be the next applique of the month. There's a video on my channel for January's applique of the month. February is coming out soon. That's the Shamrock. We'll be making that one together. And there's a new video on my channel for the Well Wishes applique and cinch sacks. I also have the fabric cut and laid out for the teacup zipper pouch from the Feeling Festive Bella box. If you've been waiting for that video, thank you so much for your patience. It will be up soon. I'd love to know if you make this project something similar, how you arrange your orange peel blocks, what you decide to make this month. Please leave a comment below, like, subscribe, and share with your embroidery and Kimberbell friends, and I will see you next time.